Welcome to the Half-Blood Report.
Here we discuss Percy Jackson news, interviews, and all things Riordan. I'm Samuel, your co-host.
And I'm Diego, your other co-host.
And later on the podcast, we are going to be making predictions on Pahua and the Soul Stealer, the upcoming Rick Riordan Presents book by Lori M. Lee. But first, let's jump into the Demigod news. So first up, there was an announcement of a new Rick Riordan Presents book. It's by Stacey Lee, and it is a modern-day reimagining of a classic Chinese folktale following Winston Chu as he saves the owner of a curious shop from a robbery, only to be gifted a broomstick and dustpan for his trouble. Items that turn out to be more than a curse than a blessing. So this is really exciting.
More a curse than a blessing.
Yes, okay. And the book is called Winston Chu versus the Whimsies. Diego, stop correcting me because I can't do grammar right.
But yeah, it is. We're excited for a new book, and we're looking forward to being able to learn more about it, make some predictions on it, all the good stuff you like to hear.
Yeah, and Stacey Lee has a ton of published books already, so definitely check out some of her work before her book, Rick Riordan Presents book, comes out.
Yeah. Next up on the Demigod news, we have a little bit of a strange piece of news, but Rick Riordan released a list of 5 reasons Percy should have ended up with Rachel Elizabeth Dare.
Like, the moment I saw this, I was very afraid
I was extremely scared. I was worried for Rick Riordan's safety.
Well, it was just like, I knew the Percival fans were going to go a little bit crazy. It's a very controversial take.
Yes.
There was a lot of backlash created just because of the way the article was framed.
Yeah, the article was not...
I think the main problem was with a lot of people like, some people were just mad because like they're hard Percival shippers, which is a bit of a silly reason to create a backlash. But then there was kind of more acceptable criticism that like the article was kind of, it wasn't doing this on purpose, and I didn't fully interpret it this way, how like it was basing, Rachel and Annabeth's worth on their potential romantic relationship to Percy, and also
very disappointing.
Pitting them against each other over a boy, which, obviously is pretty problematic. And then Rick Riordan did a pretty responsible thing and just unpublished the article.
I actually haven't checked their Twitter or anything, but unpublishing the article is obviously good. But I don't know. I personally would have liked maybe a little bit like, sorry about like the way that this was done. Like the first time it was done, like it was cute and all because it was Valentine's Day. But like this time the article was just a little bit like off in a way. And some of the reasons weren't very, like not good, but they just painted Rachel in a way that wasn't great. And I think overall the article was just, it was very problematic, and it was also published at the wrong moment. It kind of a misstep by Rick Riordan. Not sure why, but it has been unpublished now, so it is no longer out there for you guys to see. But moving on, Rick Riordan did publish a very good article, in my opinion, on a list of Leo Valdez's top 5 enchanted tools. And I personally love how Leo has all these tools that he uses to his disposal and that he uses to accomplish these awesome things, such as obviously breaking them out of that underground prison with the Archimedes spheres. That was very cool. And I think that as a whole, this list was very nice. It kind of just covered like the main tools and gave us a little bit of an overview. And it was one of their better articles, I think.
Yeah, I enjoyed this article. I thought it was pretty cool. I actually did not realize something about it that Diego pointed out to me.
Yeah.
They talk about...
Would you like to read the line?
Well, why don't you talk about it? Because I actually didn't catch on to it, and you did.
Okay, so basically in the first or 5th place tool is the Holographic Scroll, and it says Leo has created pre-recorded holographic scrolls to communicate with his friends when he needs to warn them of danger or inform them of his location. Sometimes the picture quality isn't great, but rumor has it that many campers at Camp Half-Blood have begged Leo to share his technology, something or other about trying a new dance challenge. And I think this was a really cool kind of call to the popularity of TikTok in the current day for our generations, and I just think it's really cool because obviously it was something that I think Camp Half-Blood would be all over it if they had access to it. But obviously, without phones, it's probably not great to be attracting monsters.
No, I think that's the joke because the demigods can't use cell phones to do like all the social media. Like Leo literally
They
gave
need
them
the
the perfect
holographic
alternative.
scrolls.
Like yeah, those holographics. We only saw that I think in the site of Neptune. But it was just kind of a
Yeah,
funny thing.
it was pretty
Like
funny.
I think it's funny that's like Hazel and Frank's first meeting of Leo and Piper is like that holographic scroll. And like
No,
Piper's just
yeah.
yelling at Leo in the background.
It was definitely a very funny moment, and I think that we have our own little in camp Steve Jobs Leo who's gonna sell them the brand new patented technology. Everybody's gonna be all over him. Soon enough, he'll have a small technology empire. Uh, but yeah, no, I thought it was a funny little joke that they included in there. But moving on to some more awesome news. Rick Riordan Presents hired a new senior editor.
Yeah, huge congratulations to Rebecca Coos, who got hired at Rick Riordan Presents to be a senior editor. Even that interview with Stephanie Lurie, I'm still not entirely sure what all the different editors' jobs are. Don't know what
Yeah,
senior
yeah, yeah,
editor is
yeah, yeah.
different from editorial director, but that sounds awesome, and I'm glad more people are working on these books to make them the best that they can be.
Yeah, so it's always cool to see more people at Rick Riordan Presents, so that they can continue to make these super awesome books.
Yeah, so huge congratulations to her, and congratulations also to Rick Ron Presents for getting more people working on all the amazing projects there.
Next up in the news, we have a very exciting thing. The Greensboro Library of North Carolina is doing a Zoom production of the Lightning Thief musical. So that is super exciting. Obviously, as we've mentioned previously on this podcast, the Lightning Thief musical has made it an option to be able to purchase rights to perform the musical, and online Zoom production would be super awesome. So the link is in the description, I believe, and it will be March 25th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah, so there's a Zoom link in the description to watch it. Again, I'm going to repeat it because Diego just said it. March 25th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to watch this, mark it in your calendars. This isn't like big demigod news. It's not an announcement or anything, but we just wanted to let people know on this podcast because we know that we have a platform where we can like reach people who are all over the place and may have not been able to see the Lightning Thief musical on Broadway or even when it was touring. So if you weren't able, this is a Zoom production where you can. And so definitely try to check it out and maybe go to the Greensboro Library's website to learn more about it.
Yeah, I would definitely do that. But with all that said, I do think it's time to consult the Oracle.
Yes, the section in which we look at the source mythology and promotional material to make predictions on a future Rick Riordan or Rick Riordan Presents book.
And this week, we chose to look at Pahua and the Soul Stealer, the upcoming Rick Riordan Presents book by Lori M. Lee, inspired by Hmong mythology.
I'll read the description and then we'll talk about it and our research we did on some of the clues we got. Here's the description. Pahua Mue has a bit of a reputation for being a weirdo. A lonely 11-year-old Hmong girl with the unique ability to see spirits, she spends her summer days babysitting her little brother and playing with her best friend, a cat spirit no one else can see. One day, Pahua accidentally untethers an angry spirit from the haunted bridge in her neighborhood. Whoops! When her brother suddenly falls sick and can't be awoken, Pahua fears that the bridge spirit has stolen his soul. She returns to the scene of the crime with her aunt's old shaman tools, hoping to confront the spirit and demand her brother's return. Instead, she summons a demon. Thankfully, a warrior shaman with a bit of an attitude problem shows up at the last minute and saves her butt. With the help of this guide, Pahua will have to find her way through the spirit worlds and rescue her brother's soul before it's too late. Little does she know she'll have her own discoveries to make along the way. With its unforgettable characters, unique nature based magic system, breathtaking twists and reveals, and climactic boss battle, this story, based on Hmong oral tradition, offers everything a fantasy lover could want.
That is a really awesome description, Samuel.
So, Diego, what are your initial thoughts after reading this?
Well, kind of my first impressions, first of all, is that she's 11, which would make her, I think, one of the youngest protagonists in any of the Rick Riordan Presents series, which I think is interesting. I'm not sure kind of why it would be otherwise, but I just think that it's really interesting because most authors have picked like 12 years old or 13 years old as their starting point as opposed to 11. Um, that's kind of what jumped out to me at first. But obviously, the unique ability to see spirits and playing with her best friend, a cat spirit no one else can see, is pretty cool. We can already see from how many times the word spirit is mentioned in the in the description that it will play a big role, and spirits will be playing a big role. And this kind of like spirit realm, I feel, where is definitely gonna play a very big role in this book.
Yeah, that is true. Kind of my initial thoughts was that this is going to be an interesting dynamic between Pahua and the shaman. I'm kind of seeing like a travel with a mentor, almost like a boo type figure, except this is, you know, a more humanoid person than Boo, basically human but with magical powers. And I'm kind of like this feels more like sort of a mentor and sort of main hero adventure than a lot of the other sort of books we've been getting, which are more sort of hero and their cast of supporting characters.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. It's quite different in that sense. Kind of something else that jumped out at me, kind of it was towards the end in that last little paragraph. It says unique nature-based magic system. And from my research that I did on this, because I was pretty interested, I found that Hmong mythology does have a lot of elements of Taoism in it, with the natural flow of the elements and the forces of nature playing a very big role in how spirits are presented and how different things are. And there's this belief that kind of everything is living, and that nature has like a very deep power, right? So I think this definitely plays into the unique nature-based magic that was mentioned in that description. And I also found out that each shaman, right, since shamans were mentioned, can contact specific spirits relating to their type of magic or force of nature. So I think it'll be really interesting if we see some sort of different classes of shamans or different types of nature magic, and kind of the specific spirits that relate to those types of magics. Although I obviously, like, this is all kind of just guessing based off what I researched.
Yeah, I actually found quite a bit on nature and shamans. I'm gonna go a little bit away from that, but just so I can come back to it. Um, so researching souls, because obviously souls,
It's in the title.
yeah, yeah,
Bahua and the Soul Stealer.
yeah, and also in the description, Paola fears that the bridge spirit has stolen her brother's soul. So what I found about souls is there are kind of a lot of beliefs about them in Hmong culture, but one of the main ones is that each person has 3 to 5 souls. And also, there are two variations on this belief that I found. One, where they believe that the different souls you have are in different parts of your body. So you have like a soul in your head, a soul in your chest, a soul in your feet, etc. And then there was another where I found out you have a soul, like multiple souls, but each soul connects to kind of a different object in nature. And so that again is like playing into this kind of nature theme that we're finding this book will have. Going back to shamans and different variations, what I found were there actually two types of shamans. The first type makes me really depressed when I read this. So basically, it's like destiny chooses you to be a shaman. So spirits from the kind of other world, which we'll get into more later, they basically decide this person is going to be a shaman. And so then they make you really sick. And then you become sicker and sicker until you decide, I'm going to be a shaman. And that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Oh my God. That is one way to make somebody do something, is poison them until they do it. Um
Yeah, I was like, oh man. So like I think it would be really interesting if this mentor figure ends up being one of those types of shamans, because then that kind of adds this whole dynamic of like what could have been with his life if it hadn't been like destiny or whatever. But there's also another type of shaman which I found out about, which they just kind of choose to be shamans because they want to be, and then they do shaman stuff. By what is shaman stuff? Shamans are magical healers. They kind of do basic healing, but then also if someone is really sick, they can venture into the spirit world and fight kind of spirits to heal that person.
mhm.
But going back to this, so these are these two types of shamans: one who are literally forced to by spirits and destiny and fate to become this, or else they'll get so sick they die. And then there's the other type of shaman who are like, that sounds like a cool profession, I'll do it. So I don't know if what Lori M. Lee is planning to do is to just use one of these types, or if they're both going to be included into the story. And if they are, I wonder what the kind of the tension will be between those two groups, and especially which type of shamans the one we're hearing about in the description, this warrior shaman, will choose to be, or not choose to be, but will be in the story.
Yeah, so definitely, I think you kind of touched upon a little bit there, but the idea of the spirit and other world is very powerful in the Hmong mythology that I've been reading, and this idea of fighting spirits in order to help heal people, and dealing with these spirits in order to kind of help people is mostly what I've been seeing. I do think it can be used for harm, but I haven't seen much on that. But basically, spirits play an extremely important role in Hmong mythology and Hmong culture. In that it is believed that these spirits sort of are are there to both help and guide people. So I think that this cat spirit that no one else can see will actually end up being more of a boo than the warrior shaman, in the sense that this cat is kind of there to guide Pahua through what she's feeling, and through what's going on, and through her life in general. And I didn't actually find anything on specifically like shamans having spirit animals in a sense, but I do think that it is totally a possibility that Lori could play with.
Yeah. So far, all the adjectives we've had to describe the cat in various promotional material for this book is it's been described as snide and talking, and judgmental and invisible. So it's invisible because it's a spirit and only Pahua can see it. But so when it comes to judgmental and snide, it could be kind of a boo mentor figure, but I think that space might already be being taken up by this warrior shaman. So, I mean, obviously there can be more than one mentor in the story. I'm just wondering if maybe this cat spirit will be almost more of a funny animal sidekick. So, like, think Gum Baby,
Gum
right?
baby.
Yeah. So I wonder if it's going to be more, as you're saying, the boo route where it's, or like Zazu from The Lion King, or it's gonna be,
Oh,
so it could be like that. But I also think it would be fun if this cat is more sort of just wacky, sidekick vibes.
yeah. No, totally.
And those things like it's a Venn diagram. Those
Yeah,
things
exactly,
overlap,
exactly. They
but
they definitely overlap.
I'm just wondering how much on each side it's gonna be.
No, no, definitely. Other things that I kind of found is the idea of I think it's mentioned in a lot of the promotional material, Hmong oral culture, and kind of I looked into the backstory of the oral culture versus written culture, and found a lot of myths that related to kind of rivers or crossing rivers, or rivers kind of destroying or taking over the script, right? So in many of these myths there is a person that kind of symbolizes the Hmong people, and he's carrying a script, right? And he either drops it into the river and it's destroyed, or in a lot of them he's also he kind of is holding it and he eats it, right? He's holding it with his teeth. And as he's crossing the river, he accidentally swallows this script, and is explained to be the reason why the Hmong culture is oral, is because they swallowed the script. So instead of having the script as something written or something that they read, it's something that is inside of them and comes out in the form of oral tradition. And I thought this was super interesting to learn more about.
Yeah, and that's also a type of flood story, right?
It
Um,
is. It is. There is a flood story that is also involved. The flood story does go a bit differently. Yeah, from the flood story that I specifically saw, is that there's these two people that are selected to survive, and they kind of they go through the flood period, and when they get to the end, the Dragon King, they lost all their writing in the water, right? So there's no written anything. And the Dragon King, in order to give them back their knowledge, but also protect them from possible future floods, instead of giving them back the writing, right, he spits into their mouths and gives them the ability to remember everything in the form of an oral tradition.
yeah, that's awesome. Also, speaking of dragons, one of the kind of stuff in the announcement of the book on Lori Emily's Twitter is she mentioned that there will be multiple realms inhabited by spirits and dragons. So, Dragon King, dragons in the other world that's obviously going to play a big part, and they're going to be I don't know like to what level of serious or like funny characters they'll be, but I'm excited. Dragons are generally cool myths. I still like having known so much mythology, just knowing so many stories and everything. Like I've never been able to decide if I love like the repetition of the flood story or if it's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, no. It's definitely something that appears in so many different cultures. And sometimes it's kind of cool, kind of in the sense that we saw it here, where it kind of is explaining the reason why they remember the things versus having them written down. But I definitely feel like some of them do get a bit repetitive, with the whole like two people who bring back the entire world after the flood sort of thing.
So sometimes I think that this has like this to be like an Illuminati conspiracy because like
Yeah.
some of these were separated by like continents and never met for years. How is this?
It's crazy.
I don't.
I we don't know. We don't know. Maybe there was a giant flood and it just dried up the next day. And for all we know, we're all descended from two humans of each different culture.
Well, I think the research that's been done is that there was at one time a big flood, like there at least has to have been, but then people travel around and told the story of the flood, and then that story got like reworked and everyone incorporated it into their culture.
But I'm wondering, how does it get like past the Atlantic Ocean is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, because like the Incans, I love Incan mythology, and they also have like a flood story. It's not really as prevalent for them. It's just yeah, basically God didn't like the first humans, so flood. I This is really off topic from Hmong mythology and Pahua and the Soul Stealer, but in Incan mythology, basically there was a flood, and the only people who survived were people who took really good care of their yamas, and all the animals were in on the flood, and so the yamas whispered to them like, "Yo, man, there's gonna be a flood. All the humans are gonna die. You gotta go up in the top of the Andes, man." And so, like, that's what you get for being an absolute legend to your yamas.
Yeah,
Um, but back
definitely.
to Hmong mythology. Do you want to talk about the overworld now?
Yeah, definitely. Most of what I saw about the other world was kind of with the shamans who had this ability to kind of cross the path between the mortal and spirit worlds, and enter the spirit world, and kind of have interaction with those spirits, mainly for healing purposes, again, as I saw, but also just in a general sense of adventure as well.
Yeah. And what I kind of found out, or actually, I think you managed to find more information on this. So you want to talk about like how they used to be the same world and how they got separated?
No, actually, I think you were the one who brought that one up.
Okay, yes. So there was a um deity named Saub, and basically humans and spirits used to live like all together. The two different beings did not get along, and then the deity was just like, "Okay, we're separating you now." So now, that's why there's kind of this spirit world, and those in the spirit world have like control over our world. Like they get to choose what destiny chooses shamans and whatnot. I forgot what else I saw about the overworld in my. Oh, yeah, the shamans, when they want to cure people, they travel into the overworld and do fights. Obviously, Pahua is going to do that with this shaman for her brother. That's kind of the main stuff I got on the overworld.
Yeah, no, I also found kind of similarly related to the other world. I found a lot of origin stories for music in the Hmong culture, and specifically the instrument called quiche. I believe it's pronounced. It's I don't know what it's pronounced, but it's Queej. And it's kind of this reed instrument that has a lot of origin stories written about it, different stories about how the quiche was first created. But there's also it also makes like prevalence, for example, in the dragon saliva story. It kind of like makes a reappearance in the sense that it's an instrument that is both played at weddings and at funerals, and is seen as this connection to the spiritual world, and a method of talking to spirits. So I definitely think that seeing the prevalence of the instrument in many different stories, it's very likely that it does play a part in Pahua and the Soul Stealer. Maybe the warrior shaman plays this instrument in order to converse with spirits at some point in the book.
Yeah. So now we've kind of talked about the myths. Do you have any kind of general predictions on how any of the myths we've discussed will play into the book?
Yeah, sure. So basically, kind of what I see here is a sort of traveling into the spirit world sort of adventure, in the sense that we're going to get obviously a lot of normalcy, like, hey, just sitting around, babysitting my brother, talking to my cat, right? Like some allusion to the sort of magic, right? And it also says that returns to the scene of the crime with her aunt's old shaman tools, right? So she already knows about shamanism. He kind of has an idea of what it is, or at least has had family members that knew or that were shamans, right?
And when
So I
we
definitely
talk
think,
old shaman tools, I wonder if that's the instrument you mentioned.
yeah, no, it could definitely be the instrument. It could also be
What
there's
is it called again that you mentioned?
it's called a quiche. It's Queej.
Hmm.
But basically, no, there's a lot of different shaman things. There's this article that I found from PBS that's talking about how they call souls forward, the shaman trances, different string tying, and the different funerals that are kind of part of Hmong cultural tradition. So I definitely think that there's so many different ways that this shamanism could be interpreted, and I'm really excited to see how Lori plays it into her story. But yeah, referring to just general predictions, I think mostly the plot here is going to see something along the lines of something normal, best friend cat, and then somebody dares her to go to see this haunted bridge or something of the sort, that is widely known in the community as haunted, right? And I also think that it'll be sort of like an alone thing. Like she might do it for other people since it mentions that she's lonely, but she might also do it kind of for herself. And she does this alone. She just goes there, brings her brother with her because she can't leave him alone, obviously. And I definitely think, kind of returning back to the aunt's tools that I was talking about, it definitely feels as though there's going to be the message kind of given to her by her mother, by her father, by her aunt and grandma, that shamanism is something like you don't want to do, right? I feel like it'll definitely be something that is kind of, hey, like don't do that kind of stuff. Like there's very dangerous things that you can do with the shaman tools, and we want to keep you and your brother like safe from this magic, right? So I definitely think that that could be a route that is taken. And once the spirit in the bridge steals his soul and she starts experimenting with the shaman tools, she might try to perform some rituals sort of similar to something that she's seen her mother or aunt or grandmother prepare. And it might go totally wrong. And I think with this introduction of the warrior shaman is going to come the crossing finally into the spirit world from the normal world, perhaps around the scene of the old bridge, or perhaps in some other location using the Kij instrument, right? And I think that while the majority of the first book, I don't know if it's a series, but the majority of
Yeah, I
I
think
think
this is a one-off. I think.
Okay, yeah. So then I think the beginning of the book will mostly be a lot of character setting up and kind of what I've been talking about here. I say like 30% of it, and then the other like 50% of the book is going to happen in this sort of spirit world. And the final boss fight that they're alluding to, I'm not really sure who it's going to be, but I would place bets on the Dragon King as some sort of, if not the final boss, definitely somebody that gives them either the weapons necessary or advice along the way.
Oh yeah, I think currently I'm seeing the dragon as kind of like a godly figure that they need to negotiate with at some point in the quest to get from point A to point B. That's how I'm kind of seeing the dragon. So yeah, I think you're right about it going to be taking a while to get to the plot, because if we even look at the kind of description of the book, it's a couple steps to get to the premise. We have to establish she's a weirdo. She knows about shamanism, and her brother's soul gets stolen, and then she returns to the scene of the crime to try to use like the shaman tools, and then she summons a demon. Fight scene where the shaman saves her. She probably also has to save the shaman at the last second, and then we also and then we kind of go on the journey with the shaman and
To
Pahua.
rescue her brother's soul in the similar way. It could be two things, right? You mentioned the sort of fighting spirits to heal somebody, but I think it's much more likely that the bridge spirit has taken one of the 3 to 5 souls and ran into the spirit world, right? And it sort of might be more of a hunt for her brother's soul in order to restore him. And I did find, I kind of blanked on this the first time around, but I did find an article that talked about when a soul is removed, they'll start becoming sick, and then they'll become extremely sick, and then they'll just kind of enter a sort of coma. And if the soul isn't returned within a certain period of time, the person will die, right? Which is kind of what's
So
mentioned
you
here,
got
where
that
her
classic Rick Riordan countdown.
exactly, when her brother suddenly falls sick and can't be awoken. That is kind of in line with what I found about what happens when a soul is stolen.
Yeah, that makes sense. One other thing I'm wondering is this kind of weirdo. So first up, I wonder how we're gonna set that up. Is like she ostracized more from her family, or is there gonna be scenes at school where we see that it's like she's picked on by the other kids? And if so, I also wonder that's how that's gonna be resolved. I assume she's gonna learn to love herself the way she is by the end of the book, but I also wonder if there's gonna be add-ons to that. Like, is she also going to be able to make friends with a kid or kids at school, or is she just gonna be able to decide I don't really need friends like that because I have my brother and this talking cat and this shaman dude,
Or maybe the shaman dude goes to her school.
and
In
beats up the bully.
No, well, no, but I mean, she has a friend at school. I think that most likely,
And then the talking cat spooks them too.
yes, probably something like that.
Yeah, or maybe yeah. But basically, I'm wondering how that's gonna be resolved. But yeah, I interested. I'm excited for this book. And
Yeah.
any final thoughts about it?
Yeah, kind of as you've mentioned before, when I heard about this book, obviously I'm excited for new Rick Riordan Presents books, but kind of diving more deeper into the culture and the mythology, it's super exciting. And I am really looking forward to being able to get my hands on this book and diving into this awesome spirit world shaman adventure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm excited for whatever's going to happen. How all these different
Myths.
yeah, myths, but I'm talking like I was going to say organizations, but that sounds wrong. But like shamans, dragons, spirits, demons, ghosts,
entities.
cats. Yeah, entities would be a better word. I'm just wondering how all these are going to interact, how they're going to play their roles in the plot. I'm just excited. I think this is a book where there's just so much to go off of. We're definitely going to be doing more Oracle sections before this comes out on September 7th, I believe. If you're excited for the book now, there is a pre-order link in the description. So pre-order if that sounds exciting.
Yeah, and with that super exciting Oracle, I think that's it for this episode of the Half-Blood Report. Samuel, how can I contact this podcast?
You can follow the show on Twitter at Half Report. You can also find us on Instagram at The Half-Blood Report or email the show at thehalfbloodreport@gmail.com. We also have a website, thehalfbloodreport.com.
And please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We read and respond to those on our seasonal mailbag episodes.
And I would like to give a special thank you and shout out to our patrons. Currently supporting us, we have Magnus Chase, Amanda, and Finian.
Yeah, a huge thank you to our patrons. They help keep our show going by paying for our hosting service and website. There are so many special benefits you can get by becoming a patron at all the different tiers. And you can read more about them and consider joining at patreon.com/join/the Half-Blood Report. And that link is also in the description. We're going to be doing a bunch of cool stuff over there, so definitely go check it out.
And thanks to all of you just for listening.
Yeah. That said, though, it is time for credits. Our theme music is actually by me.
I do our editing. My co-host here is Diego, and I'm Samuel. This is the Half-Blood Report podcast, the only HBR that matters. Survive. Till next week.